Oftentimes in forest management, we have to do practices that involve controlling trees and brush and to help our forests grow better, our woodlands grow better, the trees that have value to us, giving them room to grow, removing invasive species, for example, like tree of heaven, that might be present in the woods and getting rid of it, and a number of other practices. So controlling trees and shrubs is an important part of management. And to do that, we use a number of different tools. It's not uncommon to involve the use of a chainsaw, and typically for a lot of work that we do, smaller chainsaws like this, a small bar size works really, really well, and we'll talk more about that here in a minute. And of course, when you're involving the use of a chainsaw, you want to make sure that you have all the appropriate personal protective equipment, that you should be wearing hard hat, eye protection, ear protection, and chainsaw resistant pants or chaps. And that's a requirement, or should be, when you're operating a chainsaw. We'll talk more about the use of a chainsaw here in a minute. Now, oftentimes the practices of controlling trees and shrubs will require the use of chemicals, most times herbicides, and there are a number of herbicides that are labeled for use in the woods. There's two varieties right here, or brands right here that are labeled for use in woods, and these can be used pretty much in all states in the U.S. Most all chemicals that we're going to use are labeled for use in the woods and are available over the counter. They're not necessarily restricted use. You can buy them through forestry supply companies, mail order, and sometimes you can get them locally as well. And your forester will help advise on what chemicals and what herbicides you need to be using for what situations. Now, when you're using chemicals, it's also important to remember that you should wear the appropriate type of protective equipment. The label on the herbicide will tell you what's need to be worn when you're mixing or using that chemical. And generally they're always going to require long pants, long sleeve shirt like I've got on now. In some instances they'll require gloves, either during mixing or applying, and usually rubber gloves of some type, whether real heavy duty or some of these light duty gloves, depends upon what you're doing. Sometimes it'll require eyewear, goggles, things of that nature. So you can find out what's needed and what's required, which is law, for the use of these chemicals from the label. And again, your forester can help advise you on those types of issues.